I'm Jay.
I'm Adrian.
And together we are the
Two Crazy Cat Ladies.
I'm gonna cut you.
I think I just peed.
Buckle up. We're back in the closet.
Welcome to another episode of Back in the Closet with the Two Crazy Cat Ladies. Guys, this is a real, serious one. This is going to be a big one.
It's a big one when we bring notes.
Yeah, we have notes, right? So then it's really big if we have notes. So we are joined by the wonderful, beautiful Sabrina from Rawr Cat Food, and we're talking today about the avian flu specifically and hands-on firsthand experience with specifically the FDA and how they are handling this whole issue when it comes to cats and raw food. Many of you guys know that it has been kind of I thought it had already gone away, honestly, but it has been kind of like a high.
It's big in the news cycle.
Fear mongering. I would like to say fear mongering, but it's it's been something that cat parents have been really worried and scared about as far as feeding a raw food diet and the avian flu breakout, which has been around since the 90s, but it's been in the news a whole lot more. Yeah. And girl, Sabrina, man, she has been covered now in USA Today, in the New York Times, in the pet food industry, of course, ABC. It's everywhere. Regarding this one teeny tiny case.
Before we jump into the meat of this, all puns intended. For joining and don't know you or your brand, would you just share a little bit about your background and then we'll jump into this year's adventures?
Absolutely. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Sabrina. I'm the owner and founder of Rawr Cat Food, and we manufacture cat food. But what makes us different is we are a cat-only brand. Our focus is on feline nutrition, and everything going into our food is something I have actually eaten myself. So the key for me is just putting something out there that makes me feel good about what I'm doing and the choices that I'm making for myself, the environment, the animals going into the food, and the cats eating it.
Wow, that is very well said. I also want to give a shout out to you. You are one of the very few brands, let alone a cat-specific brand, that actually made the 2025 list this year. And
at truthaboutpetfood.com. Yes, Susan Thixton. We've had her on our podcast before a few times, and you guys know her, you love her, and we all trust her and her her advice.
And it's quite if you wouldn't mind, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about what it takes to be on that list. I feel like, especially looking into the records that have gone into these FDA suggested links between, it's incredible the amount of detail that Susan Thixton requires from any brand in order to qualify as a brand that would feed her own.
And it's not something that you could buy into anything like that.
No, absolutely not. Susan does a very thorough job. Very thorough. The first time she sent me the information, I was like, I can't look at this right now. It is so detailed, and you can't just make claims without having backup evidence to kind of show where you're sourcing things, how it's manufactured, etc. So, she's definitely someone I go to as well when I'm exploring new items for my pets.
Exactly. So. I feel like she really is just such a standard, the only consumer advocate really out there that has the amount of experience she has, that has been
zero bias.
Yeah, and zero bias. I mean, she's been through it. The motivations for her doing this are heartbreaking, and I feel like the motivation is really really impressive. So
and what an honor it is.
Very authentic.
To be on that list.
Okay, so let's just dive right in, because I know a lot of us cat parents, even Jay and I, who kind of understood how avian flu is spread, that it's more migratory birds, it's getting in all of this kind of stuff. We're kind of horrified when we were like, oh my God, entire flocks of chickens are being wiped out because it's this or that, or it gave us pause for a minute there, especially especially since there were so many voices that were just saying, you better be safe than sorry. You better, you know.
Yeah.
And in truth,
Names too.
big names. But in truth, we never stopped feeding raw food. I mean, there was a part of us that the fear of it, because it was everywhere all the time in our faces, and so many people in our community were asking about us, about this. What are we doing? How are you handling this outbreak? It made us really dive into it, and diving into it, I think, is what gave us the the peace of mind to continue feeding our cats a species appropriate diet.
Right.
Mhm.
And their immune system strong, right?
Yes.
Like what we feed them, you know, what you feed equals, you know, you are what you eat, right? Like what we feed them equals their level of health. And if we decide that it might be a little too scary to feed you raw food right now and go to a processed diet instead, then we're just weakening their immune systems, which in turn actually makes them more susceptible to the avian flu or any other virus out there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So let's get started with
Tell us the story.
Yeah,
We're so excited to
let's get
hear, guys.
started.
We haven't heard this yet either.
in
So
all the details.
we've read the articles and skimmed a few of them and
If
things like that, but
you've been covered in the news. Your company has been covered in the news quite a bit, and the headlines are understandably shocking. I think that we all know that the news does
the media loves to get you with the headlines.
Even tonight, looking it up, because we looked it up earlier, and I think there were like 12 or 15 articles that I found. I think there's more than 20 out there right now, and it's remarkable. If you look at the headlines, it's like, oh my God. And then of course they mention in the first paragraph, and then if you read the articles, you get a better understanding. They do
actually come out and say
they
what
come out
has
and say some facts. But
yeah,
can you share for us, for your customers, for everyone out there that's feeling like, what the hell's going on? Can you share with us a firsthand experience? How did the FDA involved? What's the story?
So we were contacted by the FDA, just a very generic email, like, hey, someone reported a cat was sick and your food's in their freezer, which, okay, great. And can you give us some information about this? So I said, okay, sure. You know, I mean, what am I going to do? It's the FDA. So I gave them the information they needed. They thanked me and I didn't hear from them for weeks. And then they were like, hey, will you get on a call with us? And I'm like, well, what exactly are we discussing? Like, can you give me some details here? No, we'll tell you on the phone. So they send me these links for these phone calls, these Zoom meetings with myself and 15 FDA employees. And I'm thinking, I'm not getting on the phone with you guys. Like, I don't have any information. So this truly went on for about 4 weeks. And then they started giving me a little bit of information. Well, we believe this cat had the avian flu. And, you know, we've collected a sample of your food. And I knew they collected a sample because one of my distributors called me. I actually got a barrage of my distributor and then stores. The FDA's here and they're trying to find your product and this other company's product. And they told us that cats are dead. And I'm thinking, oh, this is all news to me, right?
Coming from your stores and coming from your distributors, not from the FDA, but
that's correct.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've asked the FDA for information and they're like, let's get on a call. Let's get on a call. Let's get on a call.
Which is very interesting. And I do have a history with the FDA in this industry. And it is very interesting that they would want to put you on a call instead of putting anything in writing, right?
Correct. Yes. So I was, as you can imagine, freaking out. Like, is a cat dead? Where's the cat dead? You know, and then they had tested multiple lot codes of my food that the cat hadn't even eaten. So I'm trying to like link it all together. They ended up sending me some test results. The test results didn't have a lot code on it. The whole thing was just like
shady.
Yeah. I hope the FDA is not watching because I don't.
You are.
Like, okay.
No, I think this is.
I said it. You didn't say it. I said it.
I want to say this: if the FDA is watching or one of their friends, I want to say that this is an encouragement to really get your shit together.
Do better,
because scaring us and then having nothing to back it up with is not helping us trust the Food and Drug Administration at all. And we need that. We need to know when we are unsafe. And this kind of stuff is really disturbing. You have all this information, you won't share. Continue. I'm sorry.
No, that's exactly it, right? They're telling me there's a public health issue, but they're not disclosing any information.
Right.
So I finally wrote them this very long letter, which I am considering putting out there just because I do want other raw pet food companies to understand like kind of how I moved through this, because at the end it ended up being pretty okay. So I wrote them this very long letter, you know, essentially saying, look, I am happy to work with you, but I do not feel comfortable getting on a call with no information. You're telling me this is a public health issue. And I feel like if you want to move through this quickly, I need to understand what we're dealing with. Like, what food did you test? Where did you get it? How was it handled? Where's my sample?
Right. And how could you even like issue a recall or like if there were something wrong with your food, then how could you even help other cats not succumb to consume it if they won't even tell you what?
Absolutely. So that's an important piece, because I did have a few people that got really upset that I didn't do a recall immediately. But what I did do is when the FDA contacted us, I contacted our distributors with the lot code I knew was in existence, put that on hold. And at that point, that lot code had about 2,300 bags, and there were only 200 left, which meant that the rest of that had been purchased, eaten, and we have one potentially sick cat, but I don't know the details, right? So, you know, honestly, you do the best you can with what you've got, but to start screaming from a rooftop, you know, let's recall all these foods, it didn't, you know, it's a fine balance of like what you know. I know my manufacturing process, so I understand what goes into it. I know the meats that go into it. I mean, the poultry we're using is, I mean, it's GAP certified chickens coming from a, you know, NPIP farm. So everything, they're following all the safety precautions for the bird food, right?
Yeah, MPIP farm is.
Yeah, like
It's a National Poultry Improvement Project. And so they're required to test a certain number of birds from each group
Flock,
that goes. Yes, thank you. Flock. It feels like a Monday, but it's not. Each flock before they are harvested, essentially. So, and they have to hold them. So they quarantine them. They give them a blood test. They make sure that they are negative. Because the thing with the avian flu is you can, you know, and at the very beginning, I was doing some testing, but really there's only two surefire tests for avian flu, and neither of them are available to manufacturers.
Per the FDA, even though the FDA did say that now raw food as soon as this started blowing up, the avian flu blew up, they said the raw food manufacturers had to start taking protocol for H1, what is
H5N1. Yeah.
H5N1. Yeah.
And you know, the protocol that they have in place is very simple. It's make sure you're using USDA approved meat, and make sure you have in your safety plan what you will do if you find out that there's avian flu in product that you have.
And you do.
That is it. Right? So I'm following their guidelines. I'm completely lost. And I sent them that email and just said, you know, I'm happy to work with you. I need to know what's going on. They said, file a FOIA request.
And what is a FOIA request? Can you tell everyone?
The Freedom of Information Act. So in order to get information about my own brand product and this cat, I had to file a request explaining what I wanted and why I wanted it. And I still haven't gotten it. And
no, and you very when did you request that?
August.
Yeah, And you very likely won't. In fact, we looked it up today because the Freedom of Information Act, like Susan Thixton has been doing this for a long time. Cole
well
was
known.
doing this for a long time. We have watched like you like hound and ask and maybe in a year and a half to 2 years will you get an answer, which does no good in this case whatsoever.
Right. The damage is done.
But yeah, the like if there was any damage to be done, the damage would be way done by the time they got back to you. But we looked up today, and
The National Security Agency did an audit of FOIA requests and found that there are many requests that are outstanding past 25 years.
right.
So this is
I
now
hope they send them a medal or an award to put on their wall.
right. And I know that Susan Thixton has mentioned many times that it depends on. I'm sure she's still waiting for some FOIA requests.
Oh, she is.
And what I find interesting is that they basically let the public know that there's a public health emergency going on. They do not let you know what it is. You would think that if that was the case, if there really was something, it would be lot number this, test it from this freezer, definitely consumed by the cat, boom, pull it.
See, and they have done that in the past. Like we have seen other cases where it's like Listeria or E. coli or something like that,
Right.
where they have provided the information or given. But when it comes to and asked for the information and gone through we need to recall right now, especially when there's multiple complaints going on. But in this case, and avian flu specifically, and them not being able to trace it, because clearly I feel like we all know that they just weren't able to actually detect it, because didn't the actual test, the first test result come back
Negative.
Elusive.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then they tested it at a different lab and it was positive.
And this is the same
And
food.
do you know the
how
time?
long later?
I don't know if it's the same food, because they actually, and I have to give them credit for this because they rarely do it, they did send us our samples. And one had our like copies of our original packaging with it. And the other one is just in a bag, all wrapped up. You can't see what's in there. I haven't actually opened it and tested it, because when I finally did talk to them after everything exploded, I was like, I'd like to send this to my lab. And they said, you can go for it, but if it's negative, it doesn't matter to us. We have what we need.
Okay, you continue going, because I need to hear more.
Back up
I feel
to
like
the
we're
timeline.
cutting you off now. Like, keep going.
So you did.
So I sent them this long-winded email. They told me to submit a FOIA request. I did. And then they emailed me back a couple days later. And essentially, I think it was maybe a Friday. They love to do things on Fridays. They were like, we posted this about you. Thank you. And it was a link to their public warning, which covered things that I didn't even know about. So of course, then everything exploded. People were calling, freaking out. And you're going to love this. So I think NBC interviewed me. And when I talked to them, they said, when did they first contact you? And I said, oh, it was right before Super Zoo. I said, oh, it was the very end of July, was the very first contact. And they said, oh, they called us on July 17th, which was 4 days after this cat was euthanized. The cat didn't die. This is important. The cat didn't die. The cat was euthanized. So I don't know anything about the cat except that it did at some point eat my food. So I'm thinking, okay, wait, you called NBC News.
But you won't tell before
But
me.
you didn't even contact me for another, that's the 17th, I don't know, 2 weeks.
Wow.
It was really stressful and messy and hard to navigate, because as you can imagine, the majority of recalls that happen with the FDA, especially with raw food, they happen very quickly because we as manufacturers, we have a lot of integrity. We don't want to put something out there that's going to cause illness. So even if we've tested it, the FDA, they just really get on you. You need to do a recall. This is an emergency. Your food is responsible for XYZ, but we won't tell you exactly what. But it's bad.
But they didn't recall your food. They did not issue a recall.
Or she would
No,
issue. No,
they
right?
didn't. They issued a warning.
Right. And they, in their language, which I think Susan Dixon points out beautifully because she's dealt with this so many times,
Suggests.
in that warning, they say suggests a link between,
Correct.
meaning there is, if they had proof, you would, and we've seen this before, when there is something that they can definitively link, they say lot
But
numbers
sure
A, B, and C, sold between whatever, and they are issuing a recall on this or encouraging telling the manufacturer to do this. So it was remarkable to me. I did not know this about NBC. Were they at all, as a news agency, were they at all
open-minded?
Well, no. Were they at all, kind of curious about the fact that the FDA would reach out to the media before they reached out to the manufacturer?
She didn't seem surprised. She was like, huh, okay.
Yeah,
I mean, she was pretty cool. She, we talked for a while. She really was interested in what I was doing, but of course the 20 seconds you get on TV is just the best 20 seconds, right?
Yeah.
So they issued that and I thought, oh shit, okay. And I tried to mop it up, explain to people like we did not issue a recall. We don't know what's happening, And so I emailed them again and I said, are you going to force me to do a recall? And they said, no, but we really think you should. Because we've already taken so many steps. It's like you've almost done one anyways.
Because you put a stop on the law that was in circulation.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the whole thing was just very sneaky. And then they send you all this paperwork and she's like, just fill it out. It doesn't need to be a recall. We just need to formalize what we're doing. And I got to like halfway down the first page and it's like, I am doing a recall because this is what's wrong with my food. And I'm thinking I'm not filling this out. So we went back and forth for a while. And then at this point, I had talked to our poultry company. I had lot codes of every single item that went into our food. And, we do test everything for Listeria, E. coli, Salmonella. So everything gets tested before it goes out. But at a certain point, the lab was like, there's no point in testing for avian flu. PCR testing is not accurate. It will not tell you if there's an active virus in your food. So if it's not active, you can't actually, it won't make anything sick.
Right.
But it will show up positive. We saw this with COVID, right? When they didn't quite have it figured out.
Correct.
And PCR testing is kind of delicate too, because if there's too many spins, and I don't know exactly how this all works, it will show up positive, even if it's not there.
Correct.
So yeah. So
I thought it was interesting. I just want to put this in there because in our research that we were doing, I really did a deep dive into chicken farmers because to me it was devastating that millions of birds being killed,
euthanized
in
a horrible way.
In horrible ways. Like just the humanity of it was sickening. And so really doing a deep dive into some of these more ethical farmers, it was basically saying exactly what you were talking about when you're doing testing. And when it comes to the avian flu H5N1, that it is important if for the flock to be build immunity, like and that it does no one any good to do this mass killing of birds. So just the logic of it, and there's so much more that goes into it, but it was like, are these regulatory agencies that are calling for this massive destruction and putting, animals like so much
innocent animals that are not actually sick.
I mean, and I know that
killing them.
Right. How is this logic and this common sense and the history of it not making it to those decision makers? I just found it unbelievable in this modern age of information that basic information was basically being kicked to the sideline in lieu of headlines. Lots of headlines.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the fear, it just keeps growing, right? Because it's the flocks that have been, I don't know if you want to say euthanized or what word you want to use, killed, I guess is more like it.
Right.
You know, yes, there are flocks that get sick where you have a number of animals that there's
Two.
obviously something wrong.
Right.
But the majority of them, these tests are found on healthy, active birds.
Yes.
Right.
And so clearly, yeah, it's in their system, but we don't know how if they're spreading it and if they are, but
Or
yeah,
is
it's
or
just
is it even in their system with these PCR tests, right?
Oh, that's what's
Like, is
well,
it actually?
the PCR, they don't, so the blood test that they do is more accurate. So
Okay.
there's a blood test that they give the chickens.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is you can walk around with the flu
right.
and be okay. Or you can have some sniffles. Maybe you have some sniffles and you're okay, or maybe you just got over it and it's still showing up,
Right.
right? So, yeah, so we went back and forth for a while and I finally got on the phone with them, but one person at a time. And I said, I still haven't gotten my FOIA requests. I'm so uncomfortable. And he was like, well, the reason that we want you on the phone is because we don't really have all of this documented well. So it's not like we would actually have to make you reports to send them to you. We all just have our own notes. And that's why we all want to be on a call with you so we can share everything we've got. And I'm thinking, is this a government agency or what is going on? You guys don't have it.
Actually sounds exactly like a government.
I don't have there's not a file on a computer that people are you don't have a shared Google Drive. I mean,
No.
so I'm talking to them. I'm talking to every advisor I have, other raw food companies, trying to see what they've done previously, how they handled stuff. And then, my lab is so great. There's a virologist that owns the lab. And I called him and I said, what do you think? And he said, you know what I think? I think you should tell them you'll do a recall if you can give them the lot codes for every item that went into your food and they force a recall across the board. Anyone that had one of those items in their product needs to recall it. And I thought, yeah, you're right. If my food's killing animals and it's in other people's food, we better reel this in.
Right.
So I sent them a new email, also quite long. And they wrote me back and they said, thank you for your email. And I haven't heard from them again. That was that. Yeah. So it was a very, at first I'm sitting there thinking, thanks for your email or thank you for your reply, whatever they said.
Wow.
It was like I'm watching my watch, like when are they going to do something?
And
Yeah.
when was that? When was that last email?
I think it was in September. I'm not sure what day in September, but
Wow.
yeah. So
You're going pretty hard in the paint in the news cycles in September.
I know.
That was really impressive. I really thought it was heartbreaking to me. I mean, we've known companies that have completely folded under the fear of and the constant it's fear of basically the FDA not having anything specific but saying you better shut it down. You better shut it down because I think there is a part of this that is I don't know exactly how to say it. I believe there's so many raw food manufacturers out there that the integrity of their product is everything to them. They know that our pets are dying, that they are susceptible to massive epidemics because of overly processed foods, and they want to give us, the consumer, an option to feed our pets the way they were intended, something that's species appropriate. And the integrity of that product means everything because it's what you would eat yourself, as you said,
right.
And it's what you would feed your pets. And I know that that's really starting to, especially in the dog food industry, really starting to eat into margins.
The margins of the kibble companies. Yeah.
So I wonder about that. And I wonder how much of it they do kind of just count on a small business like yourself just folding under the weight of it. I mean, what you've been through in the last 3-4 months is a lot to handle in the dailiness of continuing to live.
What do you think is like from like a 30,000 foot perspective, right? Like, or 10,000 foot perspective, like looking at it as like general.
If
Like
you could
if
lift
you were
yourself out of it, and
right, like what
be
do
like, what was
you
the point?
think? And this is just complete opinion, right? Complete opinion. But what do you think is the underlying reason that a government agency that's regulating food and drugs would pinpoint and bully, if you will, or try to badger fresh food companies and fresh food in general?
It's a very leading question you're
and,
asking.
well, and no, but I mean, like, what would be their motivation behind bullying small businesses or fresh food companies while they still, if you watch television at all, you see, all the FDA approved drugs out there that can cause instant death and an
Seizures.
erection lasting 4 hours and, like, or 4 days or something like that, like all these
Infection
like
of the perineum, which I would
crazy
never-
side effects. And they're all approved, FDA approved. So like, what do you think is that correlation? Like, why would they even hone in? Why would they even waste their time honing in on a small business that is feeding, that's offering fresh food?
Well,
to
and that has
animals?
been transparent with them about their sourcing and all their documentation. Or do
I
you have-
mean, I think it's always money. It's always money.
Yeah. And where does the money come from? Right. And
Yeah.
where does the money come from? And then where
Who
does
are their lobbyists? That's the
Who are-
question.
Yeah,
Right.
well, and the FDA is supposed to be
But
exempt from lobbyists, but
you I think what's interesting with the avian flu, and I hope, my other manufacturers don't mind me pointing this out, but I feel like they started kind of, if you look at how it started, it was Northwest Naturals, Wild Coast Raw, Savage Cat, me. Northwest Naturals is bigger than us other three, but we're small ones. So I don't know if their hope is let's start with the small ones and just knock them out one at a time. And, it's very difficult because as a manufacturer, like, I want to fight for all the manufacturers. I know when they're doing recalls, every time I see a recall, I'm like, I wonder what really happened here.
Yep. Same.
Because I know a lot of those companies are testing, they're getting negatives, but then the FDA comes along and somehow the FDA is perfect. Like, they can find that needle in the haystack. Oh, actually, no. Here's your drop of bacteria, and now you are ruining everyone's life. So
I find it, I want to give a shout out to you because I think this is such a sensitive topic. It's still in the news cycles. It's something that is scary. I mean, for Jay and I to take a beat about feeding our cats raw food, raw chicken, raw
Mhm.
blood, that's how big in the news cycle it is. So we understand that fear factor. And I think the countless hours of research that we did ourselves into the sourcing of the food, what's actually going on, what is the documentation?
Well, what's the
Where is this-
percentage of cats that
what
have
is
actually
all
been
of that?
affected?
I just want to give a shout out to you for having the balls to actually come out here
We love
and
the word
walk
pools.
us as consumers through the transparency of what it is to be one of those companies that has gone through this. Because I think that's the biggest thing. In every single one of the 19 articles I read about you, there is, first of all, I don't think I saw a single quote from you. It was just your, and maybe one or two, but nothing that comes to mind right now. No quotes from you, just your company mentioned, and nothing conclusive. There was never
Right.
anything conclusive. They did mention that the FDA did not issue a recall, that it was suggested that there was a link, that it was all of this terrible, the damage
The
that I can't imagine it.
headlines.
it potentially could have done to your brand or has done to your brand, while all the while knowing you, the transparency that you have put in to communicating with
Your
your
customers,
customers,
your
with other
followers.
manufacturers, being open about it. I think that's another thing that they may not have counted on, is that when you do know your sourcing so well, when you are so deeply embedded in your own manufacturing practices, when you eat the food you sell, there is a point of you that says, wait, I'm not going to just buck.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know what's really scary though is that despite all of that, and I think this can happen to anyone, is when this all started, of course I was like, "Oh my God, did I do something wrong? Did I kill a cat?" But as things started to unravel, like once you calm down and you're like, "Nope, let's ground ourselves and just like move through this one step at a time," it was like, "No. This is not," and this is the other piece that I think is really important for raw feeders is, I did go on Reddit, which was not a good idea either. Don't go on Reddit unless you want to hear really bad things about yourself. But there were people that were like, this is why I don't buy raw food and I just make it myself. And all I could think is, with the sourcing I am using, because could there be avian flu in the chickens we're all eating? Absolutely. But that's the thing. If it's in my food, it's everywhere, honestly.
Right.
So you going to your local grocery store and making your own raw food to try to make sure that your cat's not eating something a manufacturer made, I don't think people understand the lengths that we go through to ensure how clean, and I know clean's not the best word, but we follow so many protocols to ensure that it keeps its integrity. I use that word a lot. So
Right. Well, you're using you're using the same human grade foods that
yeah,
I could pick up at my local
Right.
market as well. So
absolutely.
literally,
I-
they could be feeding the exact same chicken, right? Because you're using the facility, right? Is the same. They don't just make your food alone. They make the food
Right.
that we pick up
And
at
they
the
also
market.
source to other manufacturers, which is why your virologist so very smartly said,
Yeah.
if
I
they
know.
want to do a recall, then it needs to be done on every manufacturer that is batched from
Right.
this source.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is where the transparency comes in, because that would be, when you go to the source, that would be a thing. I
Yeah.
also want to point out, in all of these news articles that I read, I find it fascinating that with all this fear that they're putting out there, my sweet girl, yes, with all this fear that they're putting out there, no article once mentioned that if you gently cook the food to 165 degrees, it kills any virus that's in there. Not once was there anything. And I think they don't mention that because most humans cook their chicken,
Right.
right? So we could be eating the avian flu every day from this very, you know what I mean?
Make your shirt that says that. I eat avian flu every day.
I eat avian flu every day. I want to point out a couple comments because I love our community so much. Fabi Cats Jennifer said, "Bless you for your transparency, but also for enduring this.
Yeah.
That's a lot of responsibility to deal with." And I know that your heart. I love that you said once you calm down, because I know that that personal part of like, oh my God,
Yeah.
that's heavy. And
Yeah.
I love you for having the stamina to go through this. And Judith said they don't want to put it in writing that you don't have proof, so you don't have proof in print of how they are mishandling everything. Otherwise,
Right.
it is just, oh, I missed
Well, and
it.
they admitted that, right? Like that's crazy that the FDA admitted that they did not have any correct reports or
Their
documentation
was not in
that they want to get on a call with you because all they have are notes on their desks, and they
Right.
would all get together and kind of bring it together so that maybe they could talk about it some more to get to whatever conclusion that they wanted to come to.
Oh,
But honestly, you were such a baller.
yeah.
Seriously, you are.
It's funny too, because that conversation was one of the ones I was recording my conversations with them. I would tell them I'm going to record this conversation. And the difference between the conversation that's recorded and the ones that aren't it's night and day. It's
Oof.
really, because I told him, if you think there's actually avian flu in my food, um, it is everywhere. And this is a USDA issue then. And he was like, "Well, I don't work for the USDA, I work for the FDA." And I was like, "Well, I'd love to speak to the USDA." And he's like, "I'm not giving you their numbers." And I thought, "Oh, okay. It's fair. Don't give me their numbers." But it was just they bounce that ball back and forth. Well, it's a USDA issue. Well, it's an FDA issue.
What would I mean? You've been through this at a really, we're coming from it, looking at the situation as a consumer, as cat parents that want to give our cats the best nutrition possible. Your company does a really good job of giving us that opportunity. For the consumer, having gone through this at in such a heightened way as a manufacturer and as a consumer, what advice can you give to us consumers?
Cat parents.
Yeah, to help us navigate this kind of this news cycle or any news cycle that's kind of like this. Are there certain go-tos for you? Like, I don't know. How do we get past our own fear and just
Yeah.
go straight to information more succinctly in a way that we know we can trust?
Oh my
Do you
goodness. That is a loaded question. Because finding information you can trust, I mean,
It's hard.
it is very hard, and I was reaching out to so many people. I had the virologist and I had the quality control people at the poultry farm and the people who are actually dealing with the USDA at the poultry farm and the USDA and the FDA. And it was just like this myriad of, um, gosh, that's a really hard question. For me as a cat parent, when this first started, I did think it was scary as well. I knew my sourcing. I had to weigh the risks. Um, I have some dogs. Um, I think knowing where the food's coming from, like trusting the source that it's coming from, but also keeping your cat's immune system up is such a big deal. And the
Right.
best way, like you said, is I think feeding a raw diet and
Just-
feeding a variety of things.
right?
And,
Yeah.
adding goat milk, you can add, I mean, you can add tinctures, to help boost their immune system. But I think the thing that the public doesn't really understand, well, I'm not going to say the public doesn't understand, but that the news kind of steers away from is this is a flu. Okay. So it is going to be passed most easily from a live animal to another live animal.
Right.
Right? So, and I don't think pet parents really understand how easily it is passed. I mean, you step in contaminated poop and bring it into your home,
Yeah.
and your cat is sniffing around. That is much easier for that to transmit than it would be for, this chicken that has already been butchered, cleaned, right? Because they clean these birds.
Right.
They go through a whole system to ensure that they're clean. Then we're adding stuff to get rid of bacteria, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, and then it's going into a stomach that is highly acidic.
Right.
So is it
They,
impossible? I can't say that it's impossible for it to be transmitted from, meat to an animal because they have done studies, but I don't think that's honestly the easiest way for a cat to
right. I have to say that that was our
Yeah.
biggest fear when it first came out. It wasn't the food that we were feeding. It was the fact that we go walking around our lakes every day and we have ducks and geese and
right.
Migratory
and we're
birds.
always
Yeah.
dodging the
But
bird
do we
shit
step in the grass?
everywhere.
Is it on our?
Right.
I honestly felt confident in feeding the foods because I knew that if, and God forbid, if one of our cats were to get sick, it would be from us walking around the lake and not from the source.
Yeah.
And that then comes the question: do we shut it down? Do we stop walking? Do we? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, is
Or
this
Right.
just get our immune
is this the
system.
level of fear
Or do
that
we take
we're
our shoes
gonna
off when
do?
we walk into the house instead?
Right? Take your shoes off, wash your hands.
Yeah.
Be
Exactly.
thoughtful about what you're
But
what you're
it
doing.
was interesting for us to even walk through those steps of fear.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But to have some logic, to understand how this is transmitted. In fact, one of the chicken farmers that I watched, he said, I test my birds all the time. And if one of them gets the avian flu, my flock will be quarantined. And I want that flu running through all of them.
Totally, absolutely, yeah. And that's kind of where we're at with cats too. If you look at the USDA map of animals that have tested positive for avian flu, oh, and mind you, this is important, when they did test the cat, which was euthanized, and they didn't keep the body, they didn't do a necropsy to actually see if it was avian flu. They used a PCR test,
Right.
which is not what I meant to use because it's not conclusive, but they used a PCR test on my food and a PCR test on the cat. So the whole thing was messy. But where am I going with this PCR testing?
Migratory birds.
Migratory birds stepping in.
Well,
bird shit.
I think something that's also interesting is that there were a couple articles, not of your situation, but early on in the bird flu, where it was very important that these cats they were indoor only, and
Right,
so
right.
a number of those. And I thought that's so unfortunate that they're not pointing out that this is more easily transmitted for cats who are indoor outdoor, who
Mhm.
may have actual access to a live
Right.
migratory
Right.
And
bird.
that's the same with Northwest Naturals, right? Like it was like
Right.
that was the first, that was the big
That was
one.
the
And it
first
was
one.
like, this cat is indoor, outdoor. And
Right,
so
right.
there's no way to see if this actually came from the food that the cat ate or the birds that it was being exposed to.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I was going to say. On the USDA, there's a USDA map that you can pull up and it'll show you all of the cases of bird flu on every species, not just cats.
Yes.
But if you look at it, there's not a lot of cats, but the only ones that the FDA seems interested in are the ones that are raw fed.
Right.
All
Exactly.
the other cats, what were they eating? What were they doing? Because, Susan Thixton was one to point out, well, the final step on a lot of kibbles is, some rendered fat on top. And that's not cooked in a way that it's going to kill a virus. So it's just very, very, curious and interesting. And, these cases where there have been multiple cats in one household getting sick, well, it's not because they all ate the same food. Probably someone got sick.
It's because it's the flu.
And everyone else got sick. So for me, it really is just weighing things out. I have a cat and she's indoor, outdoor, and I have ducks and I have chickens. So, and there's geese, there's turkey, there's a bear, there's all sorts of animals. And so
You have a
there's
bear?
a bear. Yeah, there's a bear in the neighborhood right now, which is a little, so
Unnerving.
every time I let her out, I know there's a risk. There's a risk for a million things. But for me, I just have to weigh out her quality of life. And I'm not suggesting everyone let their cat run around outside. I'm just saying it's the same with food. I got into this business because I had a very sick cat and he was on very high-end kibble and then very high-end canned and it didn't matter. But once he was on raw food, it was like I knew immediately how bad he had been feeling, and it's like, I know when I eat garbage because it's delicious,
Yeah.
but I don't feel good afterwards. And if I did it on day in, day out, it would ruin my life. So for me, yes, the avian flu's here. It's here to stay. I think if you have a cat that's immune suppressed, be thoughtful. Yeah, maybe you put it on a lightly cooked and you just do raw food that is not poultry.
Right.
But for me, she's going to keep on eating raw food and hopefully, maybe these cats will also start to gain some immunity with this flu because my understanding from vets that I've talked to is that most of them do recover.
Right.
So,
They do.
and I don't know, when I think about, that's the other piece that's really upsetting. I don't know who this person is. So there's someone who was buying my food, whose cat became sick. I don't know how much she knew or didn't know because usually it's the vet that reports to the FDA. But there came a point where they had to decide what to do with that cat. And I don't know why it was euthanized. Was it really old? Did it have other conditions? Could she not afford it? I don't, or he, I don't know. And that's, I think, honestly, the hardest part is there's someone out there who really struggled. And I hope, that they know, I wasn't like, oh, well, it's just one cat. Like, that's absolutely not the case.
No.
So, but the fact that most of them do recover is really, I think,
It's really important for us to know. I think it helps, like you said,
telling to cat parents
right.
that we
You weigh
don't
the
need to be
risk.
as scared as the media is trying to make us, or the FDA is trying to make the media to make us, right? Like whatever.
Well, and I
Because they
love
called
that-
NBC before they called you.
I love that Susie's here. Someone had asked earlier for a link to your site and a link to Susan Thixton. And
Yeah, link is
Sissy
in the
just dropped those here
description.
on-
Sissy's also dropping them here in the comments. So
I just want to say thank you. I feel like, our whole community, we've been the recipient of lots and lots of questions. We can only tell people our personal decisions and why. I think that it's incredibly valuable to have a manufacturer brave enough to come and publicly speak. You said earlier, I hope the FDA isn't watching. I feel like that's a pretty powerful sentiment to say. Like, I love that you have the balls to actually come and
bulls
to come and be transparent with all of us
and
share
speak
your
publicly.
experience.
Speak publicly and let
empowering
people
to
know
us.
what the real story is, right? And so people can make decisions for themselves when they have the truth. So thank you for representing the truth. Thank you for
going through
representing the cats, and thank you for staying so strong and being such a baller through this process. Like Adrian said, we have seen companies just buckle
and
when the FDA comes at the door and they're just like, okay, we're done. We're closing shop. We don't do it anymore. And they just don't, have the balls. They're not.
Well, it's really hard. It's a struggle. I mean, it's overwhelming. And especially, I can't imagine if I had gotten on a call, that early on, what could have happened. So I think, it's hard. It's hard to stay strong, but I really hope that the public can look at these and kind of be thoughtful, right? Just like, okay, what is everything? Because it is news, and news is like, they just want to,
News is not true. So everybody knows, I'll throw this out there that news is not truth. They are owned by the entertainment industry, just so you know. And so they are.
We want to believe that there's some reputable news journalists.
We would like to believe that.
I think there's important things they're putting out there. There's really important things. And I'm not saying that, but again, they're not there to take what the FDA says and analyze it and then give us what their thought. They're just kind of pushing it out, right?
My suggestion would be, if you're gonna be scared by a headline, read the whole article.
Yeah.
And literally understand that headline is in the 19
clickbait
plus articles that I read about you. It was a lot of clickbait. It was unbelievable that was the most sensational thing they had to say. It was not repeated in the story itself. It absolutely said that the FDA did not issue a recall. It absolutely did say that you were cooperating, that there was a suggested link. There was nothing definitive. So my suggestion to the general public is, don't ever just read the headlines. Those are to get clicks. That's how it does work now.
Yeah.
But do your due diligence. Take the extra 5-15 minutes to really put your brain in check. And don't just let it run with
and
fear.
if you do get scared, because we have with other pet food manufacturers in the past, right? We have been worried about, like,
did something change?
There's a recall, there's things going on. And don't be scared to contact your manufacturer. Right. Don't be scared. Call them. I don't care if it's Purina. They might put you in touch with the marketing
media department
like they did us when we had some questions about their food. But then that's telling in itself, right? Like, don't be scared to contact your manufacturer. Get to know your source, right?
And we're working for you guys. I mean, we're making a product for you. So your feedback, at least for me, feedback's always welcome.
Yeah.
just, you want to know, and there's nothing, if people are hiding things, then they're not the right fit,
Right.
find
Yeah.
someone else. There's enough raw food out there. There's enough of everything. I mean, it's saturated now. So,
Yeah.
Now,
It's
now,
this is really
like
it's
10
an
years
exciting
ago,
time.
it was not, but now,
right. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
thing. Again, just want to commend you for having the confidence and the wherewithal, the pragmatism, the rationale,
the bulls.
the balls, the courage to go through this. And I think for all of us as consumers, be clear when we are making a decision based on fear. Had we and if that is the case, then do a little dig down into what we're actually scared of, and then do our own due diligence, contact manufacturers, decide if we're going to walk around the lake or not anymore. You know what I mean? Like, are we
Absolutely. That's
so
exactly it. You have to make a conscious decision yourself. You
Yeah.
weigh it out because it's your cat, it's your life, it's every decision. Making arbitrary decisions never turns out good. Or making a decision based on what someone else tells you. We all know that. We all know where that goes. So I think, that's really the key,
Yeah.
do some research, be pragmatic, look at numbers, because I will tell you the number of cats that have had the bird flus, it's low.
Very
It's really quite low, and I hope it stays that way, But this other piece is that this isn't just going to disappear.
right.
It's going to ebb and flow, but it's going to be here. It's probably back now. I mean, we know it is. It's going to be here next year, on and on. It's the world's changed. So
Judith with the last quote of the night. I love you so much. She said, "Ballsy cat parents eat avian flu."
new t-shirt. There we go.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Anything that
Thank
we
you guys.
Is
that we
anything
didn't-
that we missed?
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything you missed, I think it's just, it's
More
no.
cat parents should know.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
Well,
should
I want
know.
to put it up there that maybe you should share those emails. I think
Yeah.
that could be empowering.
Yeah. Tag us.
Yeah.
Let's collab on it.
Well,
I'd
for
love
other
to read 'em.
manufacturers, I think that's the other thing. I think that there's this, I get that there's competitors out there all the time, but in this industry, and maybe only the cat community, I think that there is such power in collaboration and cooperation over competition.
Absolutely.
There is this spirit of doing something with integrity to better our community. I think that's really empowering. And I really, again, hat tip to you for everything that you went through.
Absolutely. And there were manufacturers I spoke with, and there's just been so many people that were there to like kind of hold me up and boost me and don't do it, and it's like, oh, I don't know. But I absolutely agree, because you don't want to be the one raw food company out there. That's not a good thing. Maybe some people think it is, but you want a lot of people in the same boat as you. And I think with the FDA, my hope is that if we all kind of stand our ground, we don't need to be dicks. We just need to be like, I don't have the info. Let's be on the same page. If we can all have that same behavior, maybe they will change the way that they work with us, and then those recalls will actually, because this is my other worry. At some point, there is going to be a recall that is bad. And people aren't going to know the difference. At this point, recalls have been normalized almost. And that's
Cried wolf. It's
the boy that cried wolf.
Cried wolf.
Yeah.
And it could have devastating effects. So thank you for saying that. I really feel like
that's
especially from one of the best companies out there. You don't want to be the only brand making food. We want variety. We want this.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I want every cat on raw food.
Yes.
I do. I don't care what raw food it is, but let's get them on the right. I can't even go to the vet's office now, because when they're talking to people about what to feed them, I'm like,
no, it's so hard. It's hard for us too. Yeah.
But we're moving the needle little bits by little bits, and what you've done, what you've been through, and what you've shared with us tonight gives it a big tick in the right direction. So
Boost.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. These chats are great. So
yes,
Sabrina, you're the best. You guys,
Sabrina,
you
we
are
love you.
all the best as well. We will see you guys very soon. Thank
We'll
you
be
so
back.
much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for
And
hanging
we
out.
love you all. Mwah. Especially
Thank
you, Sabrina.
bye.
Bye, guys.